You know how kids pull the wings off flies to see what happens? Imagine if that kid had a PhD, government funding, and absolutely zero adult supervision. When curiosity hits over 9,000 power levels and loses its empathy, you don't get innovation, you get this tier list of nightmares. We're going from D tier, which is morally questionable territory, all the way to S tier, which is building a portfolio for hell. D tier, the Little Albert experiment. In 1920, John Watson wanted to prove that fear could be learned. His subject? A 9-month-old baby named Albert. At first, they showed Albert a white rat. Albert liked the rat. He wanted to pet the rat. He was, by all accounts, a very chill baby. Then Watson decided to change the vibe. Every time Albert reached for the rat, Watson would slam a hammer against a steel bar behind the baby's head, loud, sudden, terrifying. Eventually, he feared anything white and fuzzy, rabbits, dogs, fur coats, even a Santa Claus mask. It lands in D tier because, while it was cruel to Albert, who was never deconditioned, by the way, nobody died. It was just professional bullying. Carney Landis's facial expression study. In 1924, psychologist Carney Landis wanted to see if all humans made the same facial expressions when feeling specific emotions. Reasonable, right? His methods were not. To get these reactions, he didn't show them a movie. He exposed them to ammonia fumes, made them put their hands into buckets of frogs, and then, at last, handed them a live rat and a dull knife and told them to decapitate it. Most refused. Landis pressured them until many complied. If they absolutely wouldn't, he did it in front of them while photographing their reactions. The result of the study? People make weird faces when they are horrified. Groundbreaking stuff, Carney. Solid D tier. It's gross, it's pointless, and it's a great example of science gone weird. C tier. The Willowbrook Hepatitis Study. In the 1950s, the Willowbrook State School in New York housed children with intellectual disabilities. It was overcrowded, underfunded, and hepatitis was rampant. Dr. Saul Krugman noticed this and decided to study the disease. How? By deliberately infecting healthy children. He fed them chocolate milk mixed with fecal matter from infected kids. When parents tried to enroll their children in the school, they were told there was no room unless your child was in the hepatitis study, in which case immediate admission. It's like a VIP pass, except the VIP stands for Very Infected Person. Krugman argued he was helping because they would have caught it anyway. Yes, the research helped advance medical understanding and vaccine development, but that doesn't erase the fact that his methods were ethically indefensible. It's C tier not because the harm was small, but because it wasn't designed as torture or extermination. Still, it remains a permanent stain on the history of medicine. The Holmesburg Prison Experiments. If you were an inmate at Holmesburg Prison in Philadelphia between 1951 and 1974, you had a unique job opportunity. For a few dollars a day, you could let Dr. Albert Kligman use your skin as a canvas. Companies like Dow Chemical and Johnson & Johnson paid Kligman to test everything from consumer products to industrial chemicals, including dioxin, yes, the chemical in Agent Orange. Prisoners were left with burns, scars, and long-term health issues. Kligman infamously said upon seeing the prison population, "All I saw before me were acres of skin. It was like a farmer seeing a fertile field for the first time." This gets C tier because no one here thought they were doing something evil. They were just doing their jobs. B tier. Project MK Ultra. In the 1950s, the CIA was convinced the Soviets had mind control technology, so they decided to build their own. MK Ultra was a massive program with over 140 sub-projects. The goal? To develop interrogation techniques and mind control methods. They used sensory deprivation, isolation, and enough LSD to power a Grateful Dead tour for a century. They dosed people without their knowledge. College students, prisoners, mental patients, even their own agents. In one operation, they hired prostitutes to lure men into safe houses, drugged them, and filmed the results from behind two-way mirrors. Operation Midnight Climax. Yes, that was the real name. B tier, because despite ruining countless lives and spending millions of dollars, they mostly just proved that if you give people drugs, they act weird. The Aversion Project. Under the leadership of Dr. Aubrey Levin, South African Defense Force decided to cure homosexuality in their ranks. And by cure, I mean torture. Those who were suspected of being gay were sent to a military hospital called Ward 22. There, they were subjected to aversion therapy. They were shown homoerotic images and then shocked with electrodes. If that didn't work, they forced as many as 900 men, some as young as 16, into chemical castration and forced gender reassignment surgeries. They didn't give them counseling or any follow-up care. They just surgically altered them and kicked them out into a society that hated them. B tier, because it combined military authority and state-sanctioned homophobia into a systematic torture program disguised as medical treatment. A tier. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study. In 1932, the U.S. Public Health Service recruited 600 African American men in Tuskegee, Alabama. 399 of them had syphilis. The men were told they were receiving free healthcare treatment for bad blood. In reality, they weren't being treated at all. The researchers wanted to observe the natural progression of the disease when left untreated. They watched these men go through blindness, paralysis, dementia, and death. In the 1940s, penicillin became the standard cure for syphilis. It was cheap, effective, and readily available. Did they give it to the men? No. They actively prevented the men from getting treatment elsewhere. They continued the study for 40 years. It only ended in 1972 because a whistleblower went to the press. This gets A tier because it wasn't a secret dungeon. It was a government program that ran for 4 decades, watching citizens rot to death for data. The Atomic Soldiers. During the Cold War, the U.S. military had a question. Can soldiers still fight on a nuclear battlefield? There was only one way to find out. In operations like Plum Bob, over 18,000 soldiers were ordered to crouch in trenches just a few miles from ground zero. When the bomb went off, the light was so intense that soldiers covering their face with their hands reported seeing the X-ray outline of their own bones through their closed eyelids. Then came the shock wave, then the fallout. Then they were ordered to march toward the fallout because the experiment wasn't over. The government denied the health effects for decades, effectively classifying their tumors as unrelated service injuries. It lands in A tier because it treats human beings like plastic toy soldiers that you put in the microwave just to see what shape they melt into. S tier. Unit 731. During World War II, the Japanese Imperial Army set up a secret biological warfare research facility in occupied China, Unit 731. Led by microbiologist Shiro Ishii, Unit 731 conducted experiments mostly on Chinese civilians, prisoners of war, and political dissidents. The Japanese referred to their victims not as people, but as maruta, logs, because to them that's all they were, material to be used and burned. They performed surgery on live patients without anesthesia to study disease progression in living organs. They did this to men, women, children, and infants. They tested frostbite by tying prisoners to posts in the freezing winter, drenching their arms in water until they froze solid, and then hitting them with clubs to see if the limbs would snap off. They tested flamethrowers and grenades on live subjects to measure effective kill radius. They tested high-pressure chambers until victims' eyes popped out. They tested plague bombs on nearby villages. Thousands died in the facility. Hundreds of thousands died from the biological weapons they released. And the worst part? After the war, the U.S. government granted the researchers immunity in exchange for their data. The men who did this didn't go to prison. S tier. Absolute, unmitigated S tier. Nazi medical experiments. You can't make a list of human horrors without looking at the absolute bottom of the barrel. Enters Dr. Josef Mengele, the Angel of Death. At Auschwitz, Mengele had a sickening obsession with twins. He performed experiments on over 1,500 sets of twins. He surgically sewed twins together without anesthesia, attempting to create artificial conjoined twins. And when he was done, he would often kill them simultaneously with chloroform injections to the heart. Why? Just so he could perform comparative autopsies on fresh corpses. But it wasn't just Mengele. At Dachau, the Luftwaffe had a logistical problem. How long can our pilots survive in the freezing North Sea? To find out, doctors threw prisoners into vats of ice water for hours. They stood there with stopwatches, recording exactly how long it took for the life to fade from their eyes. Then they tested rewarming methods. This included boiling water and forcing dying hypothermic prisoners into beds with naked women to see if biological heat worked faster. And the worst part? Mengele never faced a trial. He escaped to South America and lived a long life, eventually dying of a stroke while swimming in Brazil in 1979. This gets S tier because this wasn't science. It was when medical professionals abandoned ethics entirely to become architects of industrial torture. Conclusion. So, there you have it, the worst human experiments ranked. If we look at this tier list, we learned something disturbing about our species. When it comes to ending homelessness or providing health care, we have endless debates about budgets, ethics, and restraints. But when it comes to testing weapons, controlling minds, or extracting information, suddenly we become efficient, well-funded, and remarkably creative. The saddest thing is most of these experiments happened within the last 100 years. Some were still running when your parents were born. Thanks for watching. Comment below, which modern experiment do you think we'll be apologizing for in a few decades? My money's on whatever short-form content is doing to teenagers' brains. Don't forget to like and subscribe so I can afford therapy after researching this. Until next time, read the consent forms. Seriously, read them.